Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our October General Membership Meeting. I'm Michelle Lee, President of Fairfax County NAACP. I am calling the meeting to order at 7:06. If you've been with us before, you know I always start off with our mission. The Fairfax County NAACP is a nonpartisan, nonprofit organization whose mission is to achieve equity, political rights, and social inclusion by advancing policies and practices that expand human and civil rights, eliminate discrimination, and accelerate the well-being, educational, and economic security of Black people and all people of color. Here is tonight's agenda. And we'll have our prayer and inspiration with Pam Dister of our Religious Affairs Committee. Pam?
Okay, thank you. This is an interfaith prayer for peace. O God, you are the source of life and peace. Praised be your name forever. We know it is you who turns our minds to thoughts of peace. Hear our prayer in this time of crisis. Your power changes hearts. Muslims, Christians, and Jews remember and profoundly affirm that they are followers of the one God. Children of Abraham, brothers and sisters, enemies begin to speak to one another. Those who are estranged join hands in friendship. Nations seek the way of peace together. Strengthen our resolve to give witness to these truths by the way we live. Give to us understanding that puts an end to strife, mercy that quenches hatred, and forgiveness that overcomes vengeance. Empower all people to live in your law of love. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Pam.
Okay.
All right, and we will start off with our secretary's report with our secretary, Mike O'Brien.
Well, hey, good evening, everyone. Just a couple of things. I think all of you will have received the minutes for the last two meetings, August and September, in the announcement for the meeting that was sent out a day or two ago. And there has been some editorial changes to the September minutes. Mary Patton has just asked me to clarify a few things that I put in the Housing Committee report, and I've done that now. So what I'd like to ask, and Madam President, I don't know if we need to do them individually or we could do them both together, but I would just ask the group to make a motion to approve the minutes as revised.
Okay, so we are asking for a motion. How about we do a motion for both August and September General Membership Meeting minutes? If we can get a motion on the floor and someone to second that.
I move that we approve the September and October minutes, or whatever minutes you said just now. I think that's what you said.
August, September.
August, September. As I'm saying, like wait, the October meeting. August, September. I moved.
I second.
Thank you. It's been moved and properly seconded that we approve our August and September meeting minutes as revised. Can I get yays?
Yay.
Excellent.
Yay.
Any
Yay.
abstentions? All right, sounds like the yays have it. Was there anything else, Secretary O'Brien?
Two things, Madam President. One is I would just like to read a wonderful email we got just last night from our former secretary, Gerson Scher, who is laid up in the hospital, but I guess had time to read the minutes. And as a result, and he says, wow, you guys are on a roll. I apologize that I haven't been paying attention to the goings on of the branch, but this report is very impressive. So I'm happy somebody's reading the minutes and glad to hear from somebody kind of a little bit outside of our bubble that they think that we're doing an amazing work, which we are. Thirdly, and you may address this in your report, and if you will, maybe I'll just step back, but I wanted to make folks aware about the change in the statewide convention.
Yeah.
Do you want me to talk about that? So it was just yesterday, I guess, that we got an email saying that the Virginia State Conference will not be having their convention this weekend. And it's for more of a technical reason. It sounds like a number of our branches have not either submitted their financial reports or have not kind of passed the financial test that is required of each branch. And therefore, I guess we didn't have enough majority of branches that had done that, some such. So anyway, they've had to shift the date of the convention until they can get that settled. And I don't know, Michelle, if they've come up with a new date yet. I saw a reference to a new date, but I didn't see the date.
No, I did not see a new date yet. And it sounded like there were going to be two options, possibly a one-day event so that we could at least elect officers. If you didn't know, state officers are elected on the odd years, and branch officers are elected on the even years. So this is a state officer election year. And then I think the other option was just to move the convention altogether to 2024. So I don't, it has not been decided.
Stay tuned for that. But thank you to the folks who did sign up to go. Apologies, but now you have a weekend free that you weren't expecting. So I hope that will be good for everyone. And that is my report.
Thank you, Secretary O'Brien. Are there any questions? Hearing none, we will move on. I do not see our treasurers on as of yet. Treasurer Erica or Monique. No. So we will circle back to the treasurer's report. I do see Pratik. Pratik, are you ready for the Justice Committee report?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Excellent. You have the floor.
Hey everyone. So yeah, we've got several big things to talk about. First of all would be the Wesley Shiflett indictment. A couple weeks ago, we heard from Descano, Commonwealth Attorney Descano's office, that the special grand jury indicted him on the charges of involuntary manslaughter and reckless discharge of a firearm for the death of Timothy Johnson in February. As of right now, all we know is that there's a trial date set for the 17th of November. I'm not really sure if we'd actually see a trial on that day. It'd probably just be a continuance, but that's all we know for now. There's still a lot of questions we have about it, but that leads me to my next point, that we as co-chairs and Michelle and a few other people from the executive committee are going to be meeting with Commonwealth Attorney Descano. I think in a week or so from now, we're going to ask him about the Timothy Johnson case and a variety of different issues regarding criminal justice reform. I personally think Descano has done a lot of good work, but from what I've seen, there's still a long way to go. And I think it needs to be our job to hold his feet to the fire like we do with FCPD and make sure he is, fulfilling his promises for criminal justice reform and doing the work that we think needs to be done. Speaking about FCPD, another big thing that happened this month was Chief Davis's presentation for his vision for what FCPD should be like. As you may have seen, we put out a statement basically saying it doesn't go far enough. The Police Executive Research Forum put out a report detailing what they think Fairfax County specifically should do to help us move forward from the crisis we've seen regarding officer-involved shootings. Since 2022 began, we've seen 9 officer-involved shootings, which is a 300% increase from what it was the last 10 years. Usually it was around 1.5 shootings on average. Uh, we've um, uh, we've discussed arrest rates and how Black and Latino residents were much more likely to be arrested. We discussed non-cooperation, basically saying FCPD hasn't engaged with communities of color and many other advocates on issues regarding policing in Fairfax. We discussed expanding civilian oversight. One of the big agenda items for the Criminal Justice Committee is expanding the Fairfax County Police Civilian Review Panel's power. And we believe doing that would create a system in place where we can have continuous oversight over the police department. And another big thing we've discussed was changing the foot pursuit policy. Right now, what Chief Davis really announced was a data collection policy. We need real change to stop what happened to Timothy Johnson from happening again. But yeah, there's a lot of work that needs to be done regarding what the future of FCPD needs to look like. But yeah, we're trying. And 2 more things. About a month or 2 ago, a person in the adult detention center in Fairfax died. Her name was Latasha Dove. Right now, all deaths in the detention center have to be investigated by FCPD. They're saying no foul play, but we're still waiting on an autopsy and just waiting for an update. We are planning on following up with that, but right now we're just waiting. And lastly, we've done a lot of work with data collection. A few people from the Criminal Justice Committee met with State for Country to discuss gun violence and officer-involved shootings. Other than that, we've been doing a lot of work in the background. We were working towards creating a dashboard and a map of showing various arrests and race-related data. We're in the process of doing FOIA requests and reaching out to different connections within the county government to get the data we need to gather a comprehensive view of the data and like the story that needs to be told about that data. But other than that, I think that's it for now. Yeah. I think that was a lot.
You said other than that. Thank you. Thank you, Fatigue. Are there any questions for the Justice Committee?
If I could, I just want to say I'm so glad you're following up on the Latasha Dove case to really, get to the bottom of that.
Yeah, I don't think we'll, like, my personal guess is I don't think we'll see anything substantial. We've already heard that they've said there's no foul play expected. But, I think, yeah, like you said, it is very important that every death in the detention center is followed up on.
This is Pat. How could a person become involved with your committee, the Justice Committee?
Just give us an email at that email. I think that's the best way for now. And we can add you to the list and tell you when the next committee meetings are. Yeah.
Thank you. And also, just by the way, I don't think anyone should be dying in a detention center without at least being sent to the hospital. We know what's wrong, something like that.
Yeah.
But thanks.
Yeah, I mean, I think I think we just need to wait for now to get the autopsy, and then we'll ask the questions that need to be asked. But right now, we're waiting, and we're going to try to follow up on that.
Other questions for the Justice Committee? Excellent. Thank you so much, Pratik. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, up next is our Education Chair, Mr. Jatha Hampton. I know she's on.
Hi, everybody. My notes. Okay, couple of things. So the Woodson name change, Woodson High School, WT Woodson High School name change has been something that they have been talking about for a while, and we at the branch has been advocating for a while. Our own beloved late George Alber was part of that committee. He spent a lot of his time on name changes. Many of you who know him know of school name changes around the county. And we have other members who worked closely with him, particularly Scott Persky and Vanessa Hall worked with him and have taken that. When George passed, they definitely did not stop working on this. So they created a whole lot of wonderful materials, really did a great job of bringing these issues to the school board. So Megan McLaughlin, who is the school board member for Braddock, where Woodson is, she was, for a long time really not convinced, didn't really want to deal with it. But now she is retiring from, this is her last, she'll be gone in December. And so now she wants this to be, of course, now, it's a much more popular thing to do now. So she now, is fully supportive of changing the name to Carter G. Woodson. So instead of being WT Woodson, escaping me what WT stands for now, Willard something. So anyway, who was, for those of you who don't know, he was a segregationist. He very much fought during the massive resistance to keep FCPS white and to separate, to keep all students separate. It was very important to him. Also the Cavaliers, the name, the Cavaliers, which is the motto or the mascot of Woodson, has deep roots in KKK, white supremacy, etc. It's also the, of course, the University of Virginia, Wahoo, that was our, that is also our UVA's mascot as well. But there are problems with that. So Megan, I think that was right now anyway, the bridge too far. She, as I understand, is not quite convinced about the need to do it, to change the mascot. But there was a lot of great advocacy, information. Vanessa has she's a whole dossier that she's created about what the Cavaliers stand for, what they mean, and why we should change that and just do it in one fell swoop and be done with it. Of course, the typical arguments against doing that, changing that, they were present as well. But there seems to be a great consensus that at least the name will be changed, and there's a lot of support for changing it to Carter G. Woodson. So that's just where we are right now. I think that the board votes on that. I think next month, I can't remember, but I think it's next month that they're voting on that. But they did take testimony last board meeting. Okay, I wanted to let you know that there was an equal access to literacy, the push to some structured literacy that you guys have been hearing me talk about for a couple of years now. I feel there's a regular steering committee meeting that meets every couple of months. That meeting was on October 12th. There's some issues that those of us who were part of the original push and our joint literacy partners, because the branch did not do this by ourselves, we did this with a lot of people all together, communities that believed that we needed to all be teaching our kids how to read in a way that they would learn to read. So we did this together. We're thinking of rebanding and just making sure that we follow through on some issues, because definitely this is still happening. We're definitely switched to structured literacy. However, there is a real focus, as there should be, there is a real focus on pre-K or K3 or even pre-K3, but we're not seeing the supports sort of moving out to secondary, and they continue to be focused, again, as they should be focused on comprehension and literature in the upper grades. But the problem is we still do have a not insignificant number of kids in the secondary levels who cannot read. They cannot decode, they cannot encode, which means they cannot read and they cannot spell, right? So they cannot decode, they cannot encode, and now they are in in a world of trouble because the information has gotten quite complicated. So we really do need to push for proper intervention services, strategies, accountability for administrators, staff, teachers, and for students who are not meeting benchmarks into secondary. That has to happen. There is some overlap with ESOL, but perhaps two different modalities could be, or like methods of thinking or something could go, or different advocacy efforts can go into each of these, because there are also significant issues with ESOL services that need to be addressed as well. So we're thinking about doing that, putting some pressure, again, just to make sure that it happens, because, you know, it's only the pressure. It is only the pressure that makes anything happen. Like, that's why this happened in the first place. The only way that it will continue to grow out as it should, and as they're committed to doing, but you want people to think about it with a sense of urgency, because it's urgent. So that's something that we should be working on. I wanted to give you guys another Oakton update for another thing that I've been talking to you guys about for a very long time. Oakton, if you remember, that was with the cheerleader issue. The cheer coach got that horrible email. I hate to repeat myself a million times, but there was a horrible email that went out to the Oakton cheer coach that was the worst one that I've ever seen, and we have been pushing on it. There is an independent investigation. I have heard that the investigation, it keeps on being almost complete, and then as soon as it's almost complete, something else will happen, or they need to get some information from somebody else. We were supposed to talk on Monday of last week. Monday, I forget what the date was of Monday of last week, but whatever it was, 16th, I think we were supposed to meet. Then they canceled that meeting, saying that they needed another week in order to present the information in the report, which confused me, because when we made the meeting, they didn't have the report finished, and they said they didn't know when the report would be finished, but suddenly they needed another week to finish the report. I didn't know the report was that close to finish, so something didn't quite add up. But again, I haven't met with them about it, and then I offered them dates this week, and they just emailed me back and said they'll let me know when they can when we can have that meeting. So basically, the Oakton update is that there is no update, but apparently they do have the report finished. So if you recall, our advocacy at the time, this is months ago now, but our advocacy at the time did ask for the full report and not the bullet pointed list, which is the way they usually, they usually curate the contents of the report so that you see a bullet list. But I don't trust that. I don't know what they will have decided was important and what they will have decided is not important. There's no reason to trust that that bullet point would be actually the information that we as an activist or an advocacy group would need to see. So I have asked way back, the branch asked for them to see the full report. I'm hoping that that's what they come with when they finally schedule this meeting, the full report. That remains to be seen. Maybe I'll be able to report actually something to you guys next month. So that was that. But since then, however, there have been other issues that you may have heard about. So I want to make sure that I bring them up to you in case you hear about them. There was a weird Instagram post at Oakton High School that the Oakton Cheer, or somebody on Oakton Cheer put out that I don't even know what to make of it. It had a cake with the one black girl on the team, her face is on the cake. You know how you can make a cake with a photocopy of a picture. The girl's face is on there, and this other cheer girl who she has a video. She takes a video of herself eating the head of that girl. Like, she cuts off the head of the girl. She puts it in her. She turns the camera, so she flips the camera so that it's looking at her, and she eats the head. And like, I'm wondering, is that just something that kids do? I mean, because it's Oakton and I don't trust Oakton and I think Oakton has serious problems, is why I don't know what to make of it. And I don't know what to make of it. So they don't know what to make of it either. And I don't know maybe that's the reason that they have, they couldn't come, they didn't want me to come in because they need to get to the bottom of that. Maybe that's the student that they needed to talk to I don't know. But yes, that's on Instagram. So I don't know what to make of that, but I thought in case you see it on Instagram, on the Oakton Cheer page, that I would let you know that we have seen it, and they know that I've seen it. So there's that. Also at Woodson High School, I don't know how to say it's more egregious than eating the face off a girl on a cake, but this is pretty egregious. They had a student, there's an African American history, AP African American history course there. That doesn't exist in all of our schools, I don't think, but there is one at Woodson. And the teacher conducted a cotton picking lesson, a simulation where complete with making the kids bend over, screaming at them to go faster while they separated cotton. And that's just not something you can do. You can't simulate atrocities and traumatic events, and you can't do that to children. That's unacceptable. And there are ways to get the same visceral sense of what people went through without making them potentially trigger the trauma that is in their DNA, because there is science that shows that these traumas from slavery live in the cells of Black people now. So that was an unacceptable thing to do. So apparently the students were doing it without enthusiasm, apparently, and looking at one another weirdly, like what am I doing here? Like not comfortable. And then the teacher, who was white, noticed that the kids weren't having the kind of like gung-ho reaction she expected them to have, that it was a tepid, unenthusiastic reaction. So after having conducted the lesson, she goes to her supervisor and says, hey, I did this lesson, and I don't know if it went off well. So then, of course, principal had to write a letter to Woodson community, which is how I got the letter. And he wrote, I gotta say, and I have read a lot of these letters from principals, and they are almost always horrible, insulting, not at all understanding what the gravity is, offering no redress, terrible letters to the community, which are just more like, we do not tolerate this here type stuff when you are absolutely tolerating this here. This principal's letter was an excellent example. He gave opportunities for redress. He had a link, please click this if you want, you can tell us stuff, how you felt about this. There are counselors available for you. These were the steps involved in the lesson, which is how I know about the bending over, separating, because I got it from the principal. It wasn't even the students who said what they had to do. These were the elements of the lesson. Feeling the cotton, separating the cotton, bending over, separating the cotton while being screamed at, were all, to go faster, were all elements of the lesson we put in there. So then of course I had to address that with them. That was Friday of last week. And I have been told that they're going to be talking. They have a supervisor, a person who apparently they do have guidance that says you are not supposed to do simulations of this sort with students. But either the teacher didn't know that, or the teacher chose to disregard it. I think it's more likely she didn't know that, which means, like, what's the point of the guidance? If nobody has access to the guidance and nobody's reading the guidance, then it's not guidance, right? So I've received email back from Michelle Reed, Dr. Reed, Becky Bainig, who's the regional area superintendent for that school, from Nardis King, who's the chief equity officer, all saying that something is going to be done. Today I replied to those and said, I really just need, if it's like roaches, racist lessons are like roaches. If there's one, it's all over. This lesson didn't come from nowhere. She saw it on some compendium of resources, which means other teachers have gotten it from a compendium of resources. And in a school system that's over 80% white teachers and over 60% BIPOC students, you have to ask the questions before you do the lessons. You have to do due diligence. Just ask the questions before you do the lessons. Don't do the lesson first and then be like, oh, gosh, didn't expect that. That doesn't make any sense, right? So what are the things that we can do? Because right now, I would imagine at least one other teacher has conducted this kind of a lesson, but perhaps didn't have the introspection to notice what students were reacting as, or maybe that's a class that has mostly white students and very few Black students, so that same look on their face wasn't there, or it could be all white students who wouldn't have known what. I don't know. I'm just saying I don't have any. I would like to make sure not only that doesn't happen again, but if it's happening, that there is proper, there's a proper opportunity for these teachers, because we don't have a lot of them. You know, apparently the teacher at South County who teaches this class is fantastic, and African-American man, really, really great, super popular, really does a great job, but we don't have enough Black teachers. And B, you know, when you have a dearth of teachers, you end up sometimes with you don't have a lot of choice. It's not like you can pull her out and put somebody else in. You don't have that. And students want to take the class. And you don't want to deny them that opportunity, because not only is it great, really great class and important information to get, but there are, you know, GPA consequences to pulling an AP class from a child who is trying to get that graded GPA at this point in their school career. So, you know, it's tenuous, and we want to do no harm, of course, but also not strip away students from opportunities from students who wanted to do interesting and good things. So I don't know the answer to that. So I am in communication with them, and hopefully I get some assurances about what the things are that are in place to protect against this. And that's all I got. And on a good note, the cotton picking lesson.
Thank you, Sujatha. Are there any questions for our education committee?
I'm sorry, maybe I missed it, but do we know whether or not what the teacher did sounds, it's wrong, but do we know whether or not the county has policies that pertain to this?
I have heard, because I asked that specific question, what is the guidance? What are the policies?
Mm-hmm.
And apparently in the social studies department, FCPS wide, there is guidance about not doing simulation activities, simulation exercises of this type of event. Like, to be brutal, right? Like, not all simulation exercises are the same, right? You can do simulation exercise of the Doppler effect, which is what I said to them. You can do Doppler effect. You stand there and I move noises further and closer and further to you. No harm done. Doing a simulation exercises like this, doing simulation exercises of gas chambers, doing exercise simulation.
Sure. Yeah.
Right. So there are I don't apparently what the guy I have not seen the guidance. So this is like, I'm hearing that there actually is guidance. I have not seen the guidance. So I would like to see exactly what it says. Like, is it no simulation activities, or is it of sensitive subjects? That I don't know. And what like the teacher, if she saw it and didn't do it, then that would be really negligent, right? That would be bad. But it's much more likely that she didn't even know there was such guidance, you know, and didn't have the professional development or whatever enough to recognize this is, we don't know what we don't know, I guess. That's really what it is.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Hi, Dr. Hampton, thank you so much for sharing that information. It's appalling to hear that the simulation about slavery is still going on without having some, I don't know, what do I want to say? It's just appalling the way she approached it and subjected those children to the activity. Did she have any guidance on how she was to conduct the simulation? Were there any previous videos, or did she speak to other teachers who had done something like that? I just can't believe that you can just free willy do whatever you want in a class like that, in a significant class where we're fighting equality, equity. It's just boggles my mind that stuff like this still goes on in 2023. The other, yeah, I'm sorry.
The to your point, I don't know. I'm assuming she didn't, right? I know she didn't speak to her supervisor, because she spoke to her supervisor after having conducted the lesson. That's what the letter from the principal says, that after having conducted the lesson, she spoke to her supervisor upon further reflection. But then I heard from families that it wasn't just necessarily like out of the blue upon further reflection. She saw the faces of the kids who were like themselves boggled, right? And then she was like, wait, this might not have been good. So it wasn't her own post-lesson reflection that she thought maybe this wasn't good. And then she spoke to her supervisor. So if that's the case, I would imagine that she did not speak to other teachers because, as Mike Waltz said, who is our legal redress chair, so when stuff like this happens, we try to communicate. He was like, in 2023, you'd think she'd ask, right? So,
Exactly.
so yeah,
Exactly.
and to that point, I assume she didn't. And the second point, again, I don't know what the training is.
Yeah.
But we are all of us, every one of us here on this call, all of us were subject to the teacher we got. And oftentimes the thing we learned we decided to go through the thing we loved is because we had the great teacher. And the thing we hate is because we had a terrible teacher. And you would hate to think that students would be traumatized, would truly be like, what the heck is going on here? And it's embarrassing and humiliating.
Right.
And
Yes.
cringy and awful, and you feel like all the eyes are on you because everybody knows it's weird. It was a terrible thing to have done. And of course, we know she didn't do it maliciously. We know that too. She did it out of ignorance. So she did it out of ignorance, which does not excuse her, but that's the sad thing, So I'm sorry, you had another question. I just wanted to answer that before
Thank you very much. And I appreciate you following up on, I see there's some other comments about that very same subject. But before I leave, I wanted to also thank you for acknowledging George Albert and his tremendous efforts to initiate the changing of the names of schools. We would not believe how committed, how he was once he never had to take on leadership in this role until asked by one of the previous presidents, but he took it to heart. And he would be so pleased to know that the victory is ours, and we are marching forward to make a change to get rid of all the names of Confederate officers for our school children in Virginia. So thank you very much for sharing.
Sure he heard, because when this thing was happening, there wasn't a person who didn't mention George Albert. I'm wishing that George Albert were with us to see the day that finally this school, because one by one he was knocking them down, one by one,
Yes,
right?
he was.
Really nice if he could have seen this. I'm hoping he's watching it happen right now.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Doctor.
I think Diana was next. Diana?
Yeah, sorry, I was unmuting. I'm just like adding, did that teacher, even when she noticed those looks, I personally am wondering, did she bother to dialogue with her students at the time and interact with their feelings and their whatever they were pushing to her, whatever uncomfortableness they were showing? Did she use that as a teaching moment? It's hard. It's just hard to believe, that would be done. Especially, did you say, Sujata, this was teaching African-American history class, correct?
The African-American history, yeah.
Yeah, so she should be extra cautious.
You would think that would be part of the training for becoming the African-American history teacher that they tell you in class, but I guess they don't.
I mean, when I saw that, if I had done something like that, I guess I would automatically feel insecure. Like, wait, what did I do? Okay, I'm sorry. You know what? How are you guys feeling? I didn't mean.
I don't know whether
she's.
I'm assuming simply from the. I did not hear that she did that. And actually, Evelyn asked another question that I forgot. I meant to answer.
Sorry.
It goes with what you're saying too, Diana.
Yeah.
Regarding the subject matter, when I replied to them, I hyperlinked resources. The Library of Congress in the 1930s did an amazing compendium of first accounts of primary audio and written accounts from formerly enslaved people. They had that. They had actual, maybe you've read them. I'm sure probably many of you on this call have read them. You can read the actual account of these exact things, of picking cotton, of being told to move faster, of being starved, of being hungry, of not having shoes while you're doing this, and it's not comfortable. There are brambles, it's hard, it hurts, you're getting ripped up. All of those accounts can be gotten and much, much more effectively. So basically, I was saying in my emails to them, not only was this a traumatic lesson, it ends up being ineffectual right? Because you didn't really train and teach anybody anything. And now all we're talking about is this, that you did this. And so nobody got that information. And it's childish. It's the kind of childish lesson that they foist upon remedial classes, and nobody should have to deal with it. But you kids who are studying at a remedial level very often get this kind of ticky-tack childish stuff to just pretend to be doing something as opposed to learning something substantial. And nobody should be getting it, but AP level kids are there for the analysis and the synthesis and high level information. And you can take that history reading and historiography is part of that, the remit. And you start where they are. And by the end of the year, they are at a different level in terms of their ability to analyze, synthesize, and produce and do research. And this lesson did none of that. So there were a lot of ways to do this well. And the teacher, unfortunately, did not have those skills. So yes, Evelyn, I sent resources. There were a lot of ways she could have done it. If she had asked me, you certainly don't need to ask me. It's not like I'm in your school, but you do have resources you could ask, and apparently she didn't ask. So hopefully that answers both of your questions.
Thanks.
Thank you.
I think Jesse's hand was raised next.
Right. I just have a quick comment, a question, really. I have a neighbor that just happens to be one of the assistant principals at Woodson, and I see her often, Catherine Martin. And I'm wondering what you shared about Woodson. Is it public information? Is this something I could talk about with her, or is it not?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Because the principal sent, as I said, an excellent email to that community, to the AP community, and I received it from families who were both in AP and not in AP. So that means it is circulating. So you certainly can ask about it. And again, like I said, that principal's name is Greta. He's new. I don't know how you actually say his name, Greata. The prior principal retired, and he has taken over. I don't remember where he came from. And this email made me think, oh, I'm going to like working with you, because he just faced it full on and said, this happened. This was the lesson. This shouldn't have happened. And here are some redress, and let's move forward like this, because what can I say? And I appreciate that, because usually what they do is hold themselves blameless, and it's ridiculous. The runaround, the Oakton runaround from that principal just makes me mind-boggling, the lack of ownership. And when you're the principal, it's yours. That's the job, so yeah, for sure, Jesse.
Yes.
Absolutely, ask her ask her about it.
And Sujata, along those lines, it's been asked, Mike asked if you could share the copy of the principal's letter.
Sure. I can probably see if I can even copy it into here. One moment, please. You can carry on if the next person wants to go.
If you can put it in the chat, that would be great. Are there any other questions for Education Committee? One more question from the chat. In your meetings with Dr. Reed, could you recommend that the guidance be online and available to teachers so that these incidents are not repeated? Unless there is accountability, nothing will change.
That's a good suggestion. And maybe they are online. I mean, I don't know where they are. I'm just hearing that there is guidance that says specifically this. So maybe it's in the curriculum, and maybe it's because, that may be searchable, but I'll ask and see if somebody can direct me to where it is written. I'm sure it's not anything private, because it's, this is a public school system, and this guidance for these things should not be private. I can't imagine it would be, but I'll ask. That's a good question, or rather a good suggestion.
That's a good suggestion. Diana, you have another question? Go ahead.
Sorry. It just dawned on me, how did this woman get this position to teach that, or not position, to get an assignment to teach that?
I don't know.
Without a great compassionate, great.
I'm not saying that. And here's the thing again, I don't know this woman at all. I don't know her. And don't even want to tell you her, although I'm going to put this email in here, and then y'all are.
Oh, I wouldn't even know who
but
she is.
Nobody be mean to her, because I don't even know. She could be 22 years old. I really don't know. It is an ignorant thing to do, right?
Okay.
And I think I'm not calling her ignorant. I'm saying that was an ignorant thing to do. And that is an action of a teacher who didn't think it through, and maybe potentially, I don't know her, but it's possible that she doesn't have the life experience yet to ask herself the question, what don't I know? Which is an important question to be asking ourselves, and certainly when you're teaching. But sometimes you have to, like all of us, every single person on here has made some horrible flub in their life that's so embarrassing and awful and could have just been like ruinous. All of us have done these awful, stupid things. And so I am not thinking of her without grace. And I'm not saying that she is never going to build the capacity to teach this class and to do it well. She may very, very well be have excellent bones of a teacher and not have thought that through because of whiteness. I hate to say that. I mean, but clearly because of whiteness. Sometimes white stand in the way because you just haven't had to think about things. Like, I'm not Black, but because I'm not white, I have to always be thinking all the time. I'm thinking about how I present in the world, what I say, what I do, even not being Black. I do that all the time, right? White people move around in the world differently and have to think about things differently. And so I am simply saying she currently clearly does not yet have the capacity. And I'm hoping that there is because we're losing teachers. We don't have enough. They're understaffed. And I'm not saying
Yeah.
I'm not saying that either. No, because I don't know anything about that. I'm just saying that we cannot take the tack that you need to go and you need to go and you need to go. We need to build capacity. And with sensitive topics like this, and this is a new class, you have to remember AP African American History is a new offering.
That's true.
So
I just thought she should specialize in that somewhat,
I mean,
but I guess with the shortage of teachers,
I just think that we need to make sure that we have a lane, a place to build capacity, and that is something that we as an organization can really be a part of. We can really be a part of that conversation because we can't lose our teachers, and these are the teachers we have, and we don't want the kids to lose the class. If there's nobody to teach the class, you can't have the class. So let's not act like we can. You can't have the class if you don't have the teacher. So it's much, much better to invest in our teachers' education, their ongoing professional development, and building of empathy, or building of understanding. And that is something that we can help do. And I don't want us to denigrate her. So I will put her this email into, please do not. I'm asking you, please, to not do anything that would make it harder for her to learn what she has to do. And, we don't want to do that. It's hard enough to be a teacher right now. I am not trying to make it harder than it already is. And I really do trust that the email from the principal was so good. I do trust him to take this seriously. And that's all I can really do.
All right, we have 2 more questions and then we'll need to move on. Dee Dee and then Les.
Yes. My thing is this: if you're going to teach African American history, why don't they have someone to train these teachers that are going to be taking these courses and how to teach the kids the history, not just throw it upon them and they're not knowing what to expect, what to do. The county could actually maybe bring in someone who has an expert in that area and help these teachers along, because I have come to find out that and I'm not denigrating anybody, but I find most Caucasian teachers and some other people don't know African American history. They don't know the history. They don't know the people, what it was all about. So they're basically what I hear you saying. They're just basically winging it, and they should not be winging it. They should be able to sit down, talk to these kids, and be able to pinpoint how African American history has impacted this country, how we've been treated, also what we can do to improve racial relationships within this country. So that's my suggestion and that's my recommendation. And I still always say that I went to school and I was a product of Fairfax County schools. And yes, I had racial problems at Oakton High School too, about 50 years ago. So I see things haven't changed.
It's like they say, they live up to their motto, "We are Oakton," because I have been hearing that from a lot of people, that Oakton stays Oakton. But yeah, again, Dee Dee, I have no idea what the criteria are for teaching this class. I don't know how she was trained. I don't know how this happened.
I just think it's the entire county that needs to be trained, not just this one teacher. That any teacher that's teaching African American history need to learn from someone who has the expertise, whether they live in the DMV area, outside the DMV area. They can go to Howard University and get someone to come and teach them how to teach African American history. They have an African American studies program at Howard. So, they need to bring that person in to teach these folks.
Let us not forget that this is United States of America. College Board is capitalism, okay? That's what this is. And College Board is just more capitalism. So AP African American history, you can think it's like something they try to do something pro-social, but really in the end, they're trying to make money. So I don't have a whole lot of faith in the College Board. College Board is there to make money. And this class, so meaning I don't know what you have to do to teach it. I don't know. I don't want to say that I do, but yes, what you're saying, one would hope that in order to teach something that is sensitive like this is not the same as teaching physics. It's not the same as teaching physics, AP physics, AP chemistry. It is not. These are sensitive, social, historical issues that are taking place. We're seeing play out in our current politics right now. These are very, very important issues. And you would think that you would have to put somebody with a deft hand into that role, and they clearly didn't in this case, and that makes me think they clearly didn't in a lot of places. It's like the roaches.
Did I write my Fairfax County School Board representative? Because I have no problem doing that and letting her know my thoughts.
Hold my breath. I mean, who is your school board representative?
I think her name is Marilyn, or something like that.
Melanie
The Hunter Mill District. She's from the Hunter Mill District. That's all I know.
You can certainly write her. I mean, you can certainly write her. I would not be holding my breath at that they would be able to be effective in doing anything here. But you do you, Dee Dee. Go ahead.
I'll write Michelle Reed then. That may be.
You can do that too. Write to whoever you want.
Right.
Absolutely. And her.
Les, you have the last word.
Yes. I'll be brief because Dee Dee stole my thunder, but I'm going to be direct. The teacher should be an African American because an African American is the only person that can see through the lens of history. I don't care how sensitive and how woke a white or other person might be, it's not the same. And the fact that Fairfax County public schools seems to be driving Blacks out of the system or making it more difficult for them to operate successfully in it, this should be an area where we say, this is one for us. And when I look at how we're approaching Michelle Reed and Fairfax County, look at what's going on in Florida. Teachers are afraid to break policy there for fear of losing their job. I mean, there has to be more pressure put on Michelle Reed and the powers that be, that there's some accountability. There's no accountability here in Fairfax County. So when I hear Sujatha tell these stories about, the teacher with the Aunt Your Mama comment and these horrible stories, I mean, this is a list that has to be taken to Michelle Reed and there has to be some action taken out of it. Otherwise, we're just going to continue to talk about this forever and ever without any change.
So
just like Dee Dee said, 50 years, and I'm not from here, but and little changes.
Yeah. Well, I have Mike and I, because again, Mike from Legal Redress, Mike and I, because we do a lot of these cases, together, or at least we strategize sometimes together. We're wondering whether it's time for us to look at planning another town hall on racism, because the one we did in 2020 at the beginning of COVID, we did 2 that year in May and August. They are for sure the reason that we got the literacy stuff to go through. But besides that, there hasn't been any significant, there's been no significant change in hiring. There's been no significant change in discipline. And you can chalk up a lot to COVID. We do know that the kids did not come back okay from COVID, and discipline is really a problem. And and we had a huge drain of teachers in these ensuing years. So there are many problems, and there are different problems. And even then, after the murder of George Floyd, there was a different conversation about SROs. Getting SROs out of school is no longer as popular as it was then, because the kids came back with lots of issues, and there have been discipline issues, etc. And and everybody forgot about that. That whole movement is not popular anymore. So that's an issue. But it might maybe it's time for us to do another one of those. And those are not fun. They are not fun. It's not fun to plan for, and it feels like your heart is gonna break while you're doing them because it's so bad and it doesn't ever seem to get better. And I don't know, like what, every month I come and I'm telling you one horrible thing after another, just because I figure you're gonna hear about it and I want you to know that we're on it. And then we have like 500 questions like this, and I take up the whole night, I feel like, because it never changes, it never gets any better. So yes, Les, you're right. We keep saying the same thing over and over. And I don't know the solution to this. I don't know how you fix these problems. When, again, to get to your point, we have a 80+% white teaching body and a 60+% BIPOC population, student population. There are going to be problems like this. So what I need, if that's going to be the case, that you don't have a teaching force that matches your student body, then there have to be guardrails in place to keep from cotton picking lessons, right? That it can't be both. You can't both have that kind of disparity and not have guardrails in place. You know, you can't have both. And that's the reality. So that's where we are right now. Right now we're at both. So no guardrails and disparity in the teacher force. And it just, of course, it's going to end up in a situation like this.
This is Dee Dee again. The town hall sounds good, but we may need to go a little bit step further and maybe I didn't know you had a town hall regarding education, because I sure would have definitely been there. Because I have a pig.
They're on our videos on Facebook. You can go watch them in 2020, May and August.
Okay, all right. I'll go out there and look. But if you need help with a town hall, I'll help you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Right. Thank you, Dr. Hampton. We are going to move on to our Political Action Committee report. And it's actually being given by Evelyn tonight from our WIN chair.
Thank you, President Lee. I am giving the report on behalf of our Political Action chairperson. Ms. Camblin is involved in another task force meeting, and so asked me to represent what has been happening. She and the rest of the Political Action group have been doing a phenomenal job informing the community of what's on our ballot, why it's important to vote, and bringing the candidates out to speak with the community to understand what their platforms are about and why and how they will represent us moving forward. So if you don't mind, may I share my screen just 1 second? Are you able to share the presentation, President Lee, or whoever is doing the?
I don't have it, but you can send it to me. You can share it though.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So let me share. Let me see if I can just do this real quick. Can everyone see my screen?
No.
No? Okay, hold on 1 second. Let me try it again. Let me share my screen. How about screen 2? Okay. Oh, if I press the share button, you might be able to see it. Okay, are we good now? Is everyone able to see the screen? Thank you so much. So like I said, we've been having a number of opportunities, events out. Karen has been leading a number of events for the community to understand every vote counts and why every election matters, because in Virginia, we have an election every single year. And a lot of people like to focus on the federal election with the president and the vice president, but what really governs are the local elections that are held. And so I believe when you take a look at what's been happening as far as making you aware of what's on our ballot and what's at stake, she's got a significant partnership list with various people around the community. All of these links are valid. Women of the League of Women Voters, Rest and Strong. In fact, it was Rest and Strong who provided refreshments for our participants at the latest meeting, and I'll share that with you. And also Fairfax County Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority were on hand to, if anyone was willing or needed the opportunity to register to vote, they were there ready to sign up. It was a phenomenal event at the, let me go to that. Here's when it was. It was Saturday, October 21st. And you see here, it was a rally about, what was on the ballot. The actual candidates came out, spoke to the individuals. It was a beautiful day at Lake Fairfax. In the picture, let me tell you some of the people who came. There was the independent sheriff, the guy running for sheriff, Jerry McMillan. He's an independent candidate. There were the clerk of court candidates, Chris Falcon, who's a Democrat, Geradia Culliper, who is a Republican. There were board of supervisors here. We have Jimmy Barman from Drainsville, Paneet Alawalia from Drainsville, and Indira from Hunter Mill. All of those are running for board of supervisors. Dr. Hampton, you would be happy to know that you were asked, you were missed by the candidate running for chair of board of supervisor, Arthur Purvis. He had a couple of things he wanted to change your platform. I'm like, dude, it's not my lane. It's Dr. Hampton, so you need to speak with her. School board candidates, Kyle McDaniels, Democrat at large, Sandy Davis. She had a representative. She's a Republican, and Robin Lady from Drainsville. At the House of Delegates, we had our very own Karen Keys Gamara in the lower portion of our slide. She represents House District 7. We had Vivian Watts, who also came to our Freedom Fund event, and she's with District 14. Llewellyn Huffman Masking, a Republican from District 7. So that was Karen Keys Gamara's opponent. And then Yoon Hyun from District 9. All of those were there waiting to give a presentation and share their thoughts and what they wanted to present to the community. There was Senate, running for Senate, we had Saddam Salim from the District 37, and we had Ken Reed, who is a Republican from District 37. And the first thing that Mr. Reed comes out was like, oh, I know I'm not going to get many votes here, but I want to tell you what my platform is. And, our mission is not to make any of the parties feel like we're in favor of one or the other. The mission is to make sure people are aware, and you are totally free to choose to support whoever you want to. So that kind of like rubbed me the wrong way, that he had a biased way of thinking that, oh, I'm coming to NAACP, but I know I'm not going to get any votes. However, he had some good thoughts to share with the community. After each of the, and we had, last but not least, we had school board candidate for Sully, Cindy Walsh. She's a Republican running for the school board of Sully. So after everything was over, after each session, I believe Lenore Simmons and Karen allowed the candidates to answer questions from the audience. So well attended. It was a cold, blustery day, but it was well worth it. Okay. Finally, our next event, I know she wants to share this with everyone, is Soul to the Polls. And that is going to be Sunday, October 29th. And that program starts at 1 o'clock. So it's going to be from 1 to 5. And it's going to be held at all the information is on the flyer. Join us at the Harper V Board of Elections Historical Marker. And then we're going to march over to the Mount Vernon Governmental Center for a program with, again, our community leaders. Transportation will be available for those who need it. And the icing on the cake is We're going to provide light refreshments, so there'll be fish dinners and water refreshments along with the speakers. You will have the opportunity to have a free dinner only if you're able to show your little emblem that says, yes, I voted. Then, we're supporting up to like 100 dinners for those who actually register and or vote. Well, definitely vote that day, because early voting is beginning on October 28th. And so I believe Karen has listed what's on your ballot, 2023 election information about who's running, what party they represent, and what they have to offer everyone. The locations to vote, because early voting starts October 26th through November 4th. And so these are the locations where you can go ahead and get your groove on and go and vote for your candidates of choice. If there's any request for voting by mail, now I've already voted, right? I've already done my voting, but if you still want to vote by mail, you have to request your absentee ballot by October 27th by 5 p.m., right? October 27th by 5 p.m. And the thing about voting by mail, again, that's you can vote whenever. You can vote now, later, or whenever you want to, but the deadline for return votes, as it's listed here, is November 7th by 7 p.m. if by hand, and you can deliver it to the government center, and they also have a drop-off box, or by November 10th by noon if mailed, okay? Or on the day of election, which is November 7th. Again, election day, in case we missed it, it's November 7th, and voters may only register at the precinct in which they reside and vote on a provisional ballot, right? And all registered voters may vote in this elections. And polls are open from 6 a.m. to 7 p.m. on election day. I know I was at the poll in my district, in Sully District, and somebody ran in at 6. No, it was like 7:03, and they closed the doors, and that person was not able to vote. So, that you've got the whole day, 6 a.m. to 7 p.m. to please make your voices be heard and make sure that you get out to vote. Are there any questions or any concerns? I can try to put a copy of this PDF in the chat in case you want to look at it again in your own time, and peruse and go to the links and see more information about the candidates. I'd be happy to do that.
Thanks, Evelyn. I also
this
put the link in the chat.
Oh, thank you,
to our
Michelle.
website that
Thank
also
you,
has this
President Lee.
information.
Thank you.
And it's going out several times via email this week.
Thank you, President. Thank you so much. Are there any other questions? And again, we have people on the oh, Dee Dee, I see your hand.
Yeah, this is a follow-up to the Souls to the Polls. I had mailed out the flyers to almost the majority of the churches down in the Alexandria area, because that's where the Souls of Polls will take place. And Don and I have been following up with the churches down there. Don, Craig, and I have been following up with the churches down there to see if they are interested in participating. I think a lot of the churches that we have spoken with are interested. We're also asking the community leaders and also the representatives for those areas to show up as well. So I've been in contact with them. And so that if you know of anyone that lives in the Alexandria, Mount Vernon, Fort Belvoir area, just let them know that we are having Souls to the Polls. It will begin at 1. There will be speeches given at 1 o'clock. We start marching at 1:30. And yes, we'll be going to the Mount Vernon Government Center. That's 2511 Parkers Lane. And at that time, we will also be giving speeches by additional community leaders, pastors, and whoever else want to speak. So if you all are interested from the Fairfax County branch, come out and join us. We'd be glad to have you.
Thank you, Dee Dee.
You're welcome.
Anyone else? If not, I will pass the baton to our next speaker. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Spain.
And I'll stop sharing. Okay. Mhm.
Okay, I believe our last report is for fair and affordable housing. And that will be given by our chair, Mary Payton.
Hi, folks. So we've been doing quite a lot lately. We've got, as you know, 4 areas, 4 subcommittees that we work in. And one is tenants' rights, one is getting funding for affordable housing from state and local sources. One is fair housing and one is equitable development. And we've had activity in all 4 of those areas this month. On tenant rights, we're organizing a group of buildings that are owned by the county in the Reston area that are having trouble with their management companies that are not doing maintenance in a timely manner, not always treating residents with respect. And some of these buildings have been working on the issues, but without success. And others have been just kind of complaining among themselves. We've flyered about 8 buildings, 8 or 9 buildings in that area. We're going to have a meeting on November 2nd at the Reston Library. And we're trying to get tenants to come out and talk to us about what their issues are and about what possible solutions are they see for redress. And we have some ideas around that too, but our main goal at this meeting is to get some commonality, some solidarity among the residents, and some willingness to move forward to address these issues. Mainly, we're looking at targeting the Fairfax County Housing Authority, which owns the buildings and has oversight over the management companies that are clearly not quite up to snuff in terms of doing good management at these facilities, and possibly at facilities throughout the county. I mean, this may become a really big deal. As there's about 3 management companies that manage all the different Fairfax County properties, and we're engaging with 2 of them in Reston. But we think the solution lies in getting the Fairfax Housing Authority to provide better oversight of these management companies. So we're doing it with that in mind. We're kind of partnering a little bit with Tenants and Workers United on this meeting. We've had a call with the executive director of Tenants and Workers who works in the Alexandria and South Fairfax area. And even though they don't work in that area, she's giving us some advice on how to conduct the meeting and how to get people involved and becoming organized. So we're kind of feeling our way. We're looking for expertise in terms of organizing. And we may be able to get some through their mother organization. But we've got a pretty good committee. We've got 4 or 5 people on the committee, including one of the tenants from one of the buildings. And we're moving forward with this meeting. It's November 2nd. It's at the Reston Library. And we've been flyering all the buildings, 8 or 9 different buildings, hoping for a good turnout. It's a very multicultural, multiracial area. So NAACP doesn't have a real expertise in tenant organizing. So we're trying to get some advice from the people who do this professionally. And we're getting some good cooperation and good advice. And we'll see what happens at this meeting. And we're hoping to get residents inspired to volunteer and to continue this effort. It's not going to be us leading it. It's going to be the residents who commit to helping and working on this issue. Second issue is trying to get funding for affordable housing. through state and local sources. We did make a push to get funding for rent relief, which failed, but I've had further conversations with the head of the Health and Human Services Department, and they think they may indeed need some more funding, maybe in the spring. They want to work with us on getting more funding for next year. So we're pushing ahead with that. What we're looking at is the whole, they call continuum of care, continuum of housing range, which runs from homelessness through catching people with rent relief as they're in eviction court and just about to become homeless, and up to giving rent relief to people in housing that need it, to building more affordable housing, permanent committed affordable housing. There's this whole range of different things that go on for offering people affordable housing, which is getting harder and harder to obtain because the rents are going up a lot and they're going up faster than salaries. So housing is becoming more unaffordable to people in Fairfax County. Another area we work in is the fair housing, and we've worked on that lately. We did have a big win this summer on affordable fair housing. We got the county to designate a person at the county executive level to coordinate fair housing activities among various departments, which are all kind of siloed and don't normally coordinate with each other a whole lot. So this person is going to help coordinate fair housing activities and help them prioritize fair housing activities. And one thing we did this week is that the COG, the Council of Governments, the Metro DC Council of Governments, which got all the different jurisdictions to collaborate on coming up with 7 goals for fair housing, has now put in a proposal to HUD for about $6 million to fund some of the efforts to move towards fair housing. And Fairfax County was a little bit late to the table again, but they did put in some proposals. And I sent in a comment, long comments from Housing Committee on the proposal. And my comments were generally that the whole scheme of things, the whole proposal is very oriented towards transit-oriented development and increasing the amount of housing in the whole Metro DC area, which is important. We have a pretty serious housing shortage compared to what we should have. But what we don't have is a policy on equitable transit-oriented development. We don't have a policy that includes ways to not displace people, to not have gentrification around all the transit hubs, which is pretty much what will happen if we don't have a change in policy. And I'm realizing that the change has to be at a very kind of high level of the comprehensive plan, and not even the comprehensive plan, but the comprehensive plan policy, which is being reevaluated and revised. And Evelyn's on the Planning Commission for that and working on it. And I think what we really need to put into this revision is some equity carve-outs or considerations for development. We need to look at developing areas, especially areas that are long-standing communities of color that have been around for a long time. Maybe these communities need to be developed in a way that benefits the people who live there already, rather than gentrified and pushing people out and bringing in new people. And that there needs to be a balance between this intense intense development around transit centers and equitable development, which involves conversations with the people who live there already and how they want to see the area develop, and how that area can develop to benefit them. The fair housing, one Fairfax policy says a program should be, programs or projects should look at who benefits, who's harmed, and who's at the table. And what we see in a lot of the older communities, especially along the Route 1 corridor, where there's a lot of rental apartments, there's a lot of kind of what they call NOAA, which is naturally occurring affordable housing, which means the apartments are old and they can't charge much for them because they're older, smaller. About half of the NOAA market rate affordable housing in the whole county is on the Route 1 corridor. And that corridor is really slated for high density transit oriented development, which means at some point, those older apartment buildings are going to be redeveloped into new apartment buildings. And if you're tearing down apartment buildings that house a lot of people, you're not going to be able to accommodate all those people in the new apartment building, no matter what kind of regulations you put out. It's just not going to work out. So what we're asking for is a kind of a new lens on this development that considers equity in doing redevelopment in transit corridors. And we're trying to get that through to COG and through to Fairfax County through this new revision of the comprehensive plan policy. So we're going, I mean, we've been working on things all the way from cockroaches and rats in the apartment, in the tenants apartments, to this kind of high level comprehensive plan policy in getting equitable development. And I think you do need to kind of work on that whole range of issues to make progress. So that's what we've been up to. So I see questions from Ken and Dee Dee. Ken?
Hello, everybody. I'm going to just carry on from what Mary has already stated. You know, when we talk about affordable housing, we have the missing middle problem here in Fairfax County. And the largest problem is single family homes. I want to remind people back in the 60s, my parents were renters with a 3-bedroom housing with a landlord in that same house. And what we lack here is the single family zoning. And the problem with that is these garden apartments where people would rent, save up some money so that they can buy their own home. That is no longer here. People can rent all they want, but they will never be able to buy their home sustainably. So that step into renting to home ownership is missing. And we need to change that. And one of the problems we have in keeping that the way it is single family homes. And we need to correct that so that people can get into somewhere where they can rent and start saving up enough money so that they can own home ownership and be like the story, the good story that my mother and father had back in the 60s. And until we get to that nature, that feature, we're never, ever going to accomplish anything with that. Now, you think about that is that if you save up enough money that you can afford to own a home ownership or whatever, then it takes some time, especially with the limited income that we're having now and the cost of living right now for those who are trying to get into the market. But how do we equalize that? In case you didn't notice, most of the homes here in Fairfax County, when we start talking about the rental part, those single family or whatever apartment buildings where people would go in and rent, save up enough money, and then purchase their own home, almost non-existent. But until we change that dynamic that we have with home ownership leading up to it, to where every single the what do you call it, the commissioners who charge and say this is single family occupancy, but you notice the garden apartments that we used to have an abundance in are now townhouses and whatsoever. So that right there, until we keep where people can rent, save, and then purchase, we need to really capitalize on that and bring that back into fruition. So, thank
Okay,
you.
thanks, Jen. Didi, you have a question? Yeah, I have a question. I have a statement for Ken. Ken, I'm a real estate agent, and there's money out there for anybody that wants to buy a home. The Virginia Housing Authority is working with people that are in the middle and low income. So I've been working with two types of people that are in the low income and people that are in the middle income to find a home. So there is money out there. So if, anyone wants to talk to me about it, they can give me a call or email me, and I can tell them about the program, because I've been through the program and I understand how it works. But there is money out there for people to buy in Virginia, because money is available through the state of Virginia.
Okay, so
And if you live in Prince William County, there is an additional funding that you can get if you live in Prince William County. They don't have it in Fairfax or Arlington or Alexandria, but they do have it in Prince William County, a special program just for that group.
okay, that's a very good point, and I'm glad you brought that up. We're not talking about Prince William County. We're talking about
I
Fairfax.
understand that. I'm talking about Fairfax County as well.
I got you.
Yeah.
But understand this. If you are not taking care and breaching the gap from home rental to home ownership, if you're not doing that, you really have done a disservice to the county. So the people who would normally be able to save up enough money by renting and then owning, that missing link there is disappearing, because all of the people who are renting now, they're turning those rental units into condos and townhouses. They're redeveloping those. So that missing link there is not going to help people of minorities to be able to get a step up to where they actually go from renting to home ownership. And that's the missing link that we're trying to correct here.
Right. In the real estate industry, we are working on that. There is money available for anyone that wants to buy a home. There's first-time home buyers programs. There's programs that can teach you how to go from renting to be a homeowner. There's all kinds of information out there that anybody that wants to buy, there's a lot of information out there. You just gotta, if someone wants to know about all this stuff, they can contact me. I can tell them about all the programs that are out there. So, if they want to go from home ownership, pardon?
My question to you is this: how come we don't see firefighters, police officers, school teachers doing that and taking advantage of that?
Yeah, there's money out
let
there.
me finish.
Okay.
In Fairfax County, instead of moving out away where they can find affordable housing outside of Fairfax County, we're only dealing with Fairfax County here. So why is it that we have a misnomer of those people who are very valuable? We have the best schools in this tri-state area. We have a good police population. We have a good firefighter population. But why aren't they living in the county if it was so affordable? They're moving out further and further and further away from here. And I always thought, when it comes to even the police officers, wouldn't it be better for the police officers to live in the communities that they police, that they have a better acknowledgement an arrangement with the people that they're dealing with as far as crime is concerned, because they live in those neighborhoods? That is and has been for the past 10 years that I've been living here and over that a problem. And we need to address that first. I hear what you're saying, and you're absolutely right, but it's never, ever enough.
Okay, but there are programs for them too as well. So, you know, maybe you may not know about those programs, but I know there are programs out there for just what you just said too, and anyone else that wants to go from being a renter to a homeowner. So,
Dee Dee, can you put your contact information in the chat?
Who,
yes,
me?
I will. Yeah, and Mary, I want to ask you a question. I read in the paper, I guess it was a couple of days ago, that they're getting ready to build some affordable housing units in Tyson's Corner.
Yes.
So where did the money come from and where are they building it?
I don't know the exact street they're building it on. I could send that to you, but the some of that money came, I believe, from Amazon, and some of it from the Tyson's group that supports affordable housing. Evelyn, do you know more about
Yes,
where it's from?
Yes, and some of them, it's a company that has built affordable housing in other areas. So they have experience with doing this type of building. Yeah, so it's the actual developer that is investing money into the program also. So from the entities that you mentioned, Mary, and additionally, the developer who is going to work on the project.
The tax credit project, it's done with some state and federal tax credits. And it's a big project. It's really good.
It's a
It's
major
really
project.
large project. Yeah.
And it's been quite successful. They have a great track record. In fact, while I've been on the planning commission board, that was recently approved, like within the last year or so. And they have a great track record, and we saw what the building will look like, and it's going to be totally affordable. It's not going to be, you know, like 10%, 20%, the whole building. I think it's like 300 some odd units. The concern is, how do people know how to apply for these programs, right? And like Dee Dee said, there are programs out there. And then for some of these affordable homes, you have to register with the Fairfax County division that helps people to, you know, register. You take classes and qualify, so that you do have to be aware of these programs, but they are out there to help.
I want to add.
I know they're not enough, but they are out there to help.
I want to add that I'm not against you, Dee. We are in this thing together, so we're not antagonistic between you and me.
No.
Guys, can we raise our hands if we're going to speak? Yeah, can we not have private conversations? We raise our hands if we have a question or comment.
I think Patricia's been raising her hand for some time. I think she has a question or comment.
Patricia, I didn't see Patricia's hand raised, but go ahead, Patricia.
Well, I couldn't figure out how to raise my hand. I'm not very good on Zoom, but I put my comment in the chat. Thank you.
Thank you. It used to be called rent with option to buy. I don't hear about that anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, rent it with option to buy is a process. It's a mechanism that it can work very well, but it's very often abused. A lot of properties are you pay your rent and you think you're like paying it like you're going to own the place, but a lot of these contracts have a very severe cutoff. Like if you miss a payment for 1 month, you forfeit the whole thing. And this is often used with mobile homes by mobile home park owners. When they're selling mobile homes to tenants, they'll give them one of these types of contracts. And they do it in a way that can actually, you lose all the money you've put into it. You lose everything if you're a month late. And that's really pretty severe. The contract can be done in a good way where you don't lose everything all at once. And it's some states have that. They call it a land contract. Where I'm from in Michigan, a lot of things were sold according to that premise. You'd rent it and you'd pay it, and all the rent you paid would go towards your equity. And I don't see that too much in Virginia, but I know it's something that can be badly abused or something that can be done well. Dee Dee.
They used to do it when I first started in real estate back in the maybe early 2000s. They did have rent with option to buy, but you had to have it in your lease that this certain amount of money was going into your lease and all of that kind of stuff. So it has to be in the lease that your rent with option to buy and this certain amount of money is going to be set aside. So hopefully that way the landlord's not abusing the money. And, that way, that money that they're putting towards this house is part of the down payment. But like you say, you don't see that any longer. So, I think because of the fact that sometimes people have abused the system and some of them are scams.
Question, any talk of making ADUs easier to get? Yeah, the county did pass a thing on ADUs as part of their new zoning regulations. And it's a little bit limited, but it does allow some ADUs, allows an administrative approval for some types of ADUs. And it requires a public hearing for other types, but it makes it easier to construct ADUs, both separate and within your house. Evelyn, do you want to say any more about that? I don't know if have people been doing it since it was passed?
Mary, I'm not privileged to that information, but I can get how many people are partaking in that. But yeah, that was part of they updated the modifications. They made a modification to ZMod, and there was a lot of controversy around it, but it does give greater flexibility, particularly in those areas that have high rent areas, like in the Arlington area, Annandale area. You're allowed, and it gives qualifications where you can have a small business, or you can have a portion of your house that is allocated for renting. They have to have their own bathroom and kitchen. So yeah, that has been available, but I don't know how many people have taken advantage of it, but I can find out if anyone is interested.
Yeah, it's pretty new, but we'll see how many
just started. Yeah,
pick up on it. Yeah.
It was just as we came out of COVID, and then we got sued because some people thought that we shouldn't have ZMod, but it's available now. So we should start to see a pickup as far as those who it's legal to have affordable dwellings. Accessory.
And you have to have a certain size of a lot if you're going to build a
yes,
separate ADU on the lot. So it's
yes. They have to have a separate entrance. If it's in a house, it could be down in the basement, but they have to have a separate entrance to get down in that basement. And there are qualifications that must be met. Yeah. But it is available.
The COG report hyped that a lot as a method of integration. I don't really see that myself. I don't, fair housing requirements don't apply to a single landlord. I think it may provide housing for family and relatives, maybe some teachers or people who work in the area. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. It's new in Fairfax, and we'll see how it works out. I hope the county will follow it and see how much it's used and who benefits from it. Okay, Arthur has a question. Arthur?
Yeah. Hi, everybody. Couple things. First of all, just in terms of terminology, what Dee Dee was just talking about are accessory living units. And then affordable dwelling units, ADUs, are when they do a development, they have to have some percentage of the units affordable.
Right,
But
yeah,
anyway,
you're correct about that.
yeah, but anyway, I had a question for Mary. I actually, on the campaign trail, I had an opportunity to have an extended chat with my opponent, and it was a wonderful conversation. And among other things, we talked about those garden apartments along Route 1. And Mary Jeff told me that they passed something which required the developer to do a 1-for-1 replacement along Route 1 for the garden apartment, for the affordable garden apartments. I didn't state that very well, but and you just said that there's no way they could, in putting in the higher density, maintain the same number of affordable units. So,
Right, the new policy is called one-for-one replacement, comma, if possible. And I think the people who wrote it and who approved it know that it's not always going to be possible.
So I explicitly said to Jeff, I thought there was a loophole, and he said, no, there's no loophole. Even if there were no loophole, you would still have a problem, because when you tear those apartments down, where do the people move while they're waiting for the replacement apartments to be built?
Right. Well, those are two different problems. One is, whether they go away, may take 2 years to build a new building. It's not fast. And they come back. If they have right of return, which they would, they can come back. And do they have to requalify when they come back, or what lets them back in? But a lot of times people establish a new residence in 2 years and they don't come back, which is okay. I mean, they're down in Prince William County and they're in school there, and it's really hard to suspend your life for 2 years and then move back into your old neighborhood. So there is a kind of fall off, and people do that. But the other problem is that when you tear down a small area and build a larger apartment, you may be able to accommodate the people in the smaller building into the larger building if the thing you tore down was fairly small. But if it's in an area like Route 1, which is already really built up with a fair number of pretty larger apartments, it's really hard to try to get a developer to actually accommodate that. And I use as an example the Beacon Hill apartments, which are 700 units, and they're right next to a planned bus rapid transit station. The owner of that has already put in a proposal which was rejected, but it'll come back, I'm sure, to build, I think, 2,700 apartment buildings. But if he were to replace all of those 700 units, it would be more than 25% of his new development would be affordable housing. And any developer will tell you that's not going to, what they call pencil out, that's not going to work for them to accommodate that many affordable housing units on site. So where are those people going to go? Are they going to have buildings other places? Or, it's very complicated. It's where you're tearing down large amounts of affordable housing, replacing it. You have to have really tall buildings, really big buildings to accommodate the amount of units you're tearing down. And that may not happen. So that's the issue. That's the issue that I'm talking about.
Can I run one other thing by you real quick? Supervisor Alcorn told me, had a wonderful conversation with him too, that in the Reston Master Plan, 30,000 units have been approved for construction, but they're not being built. And I went to this forum, the Washington Economic Forum, and John Peterson was there. And I asked him, why aren't they being built? And he said it was because the county was requiring 30% ADUs. And you're right, he used the term, it doesn't pencil out. So there's a case where affordable
It's
housing.
not 30% ADUs, maybe you're talking about WDUs. ADUs are a very tiny amount of requirements. And I don't
Well,
think it's 20%, it's the area, the percentage in Tyson's is 20, which is the highest anywhere. The percentage at the Huntington Metro is 15, and the percentage on Route 1 and everywhere else is 8% WDUs. And those are limits, those were percentages that were discussed for many, many months with developers and with the planning committee. And of course, the developers wanted less, but that's what they agreed on, which is not a lot, I don't think.
Yeah, thank you very much. I appreciate your insights.
Are
Okay,
there any other questions? Patricia says it's nice to hear tiny homes mentioned. Yes, it is. Are there any other questions? All right, is there any new business? Anything we didn't discuss tonight that you were expecting to hear? Any follow-up business, any old business? Okay.
Wait a minute.
Oh, go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you very much for holding that wonderful event at Lake Fairfax Park on Saturday. I really appreciated it. Thanks a lot.
Yep, Evelyn talked about that and talked about Souls for the Polls on Sunday as well. All right, well, in fact, I'm not hearing any new or old business. It is 8:52, and I am going to adjourn the meeting unless there's any response, and hearing none, I will adjourn the meeting at 8:52. Thank you all for joining us tonight, and we hope to see you again at Souls for the Polls on Sunday and at our November meeting as well. And stay tuned in email. You will see information on Souls for the Poll as well as voting. And you'll see that between now and Sunday.
Yeah.
You
Please
are
come
welcome,
out.
Patricia.
Please,
Thanks for joining
please.
us.
Thanks, everyone. Good
Good night, everyone.
Good night. Good to see you, Diana. Luke, good to see you.
Night.
Night. Ken, good to see you. Thanks for joining us. Charles, good to see you.
Take care, bye.
Take care. I think we can stop recording. Thanks, Lenore. Appreciate you.